Today's video follows an entire year of us having this Makita drill. I got it a year ago for only $10 off of eBay. The seller put the wrong number, but they honored the price and they sent it to me. They were really local, so it didn't work out too badly for them. And we do a few experiments with opening it up, re-greasing it, reviving the nickel cadmium battery. It works again. We take apart the charger, clean up the box, get it all working nice, and this is now our apartment drill, our house drill. So much so that I'm actually going to be selling my Milwaukee to a friend because we don't need any other drill here. We have it all cleaned up. We have noticed that it has a lot of speckling on it. Once I cleaned it, I think this had a lot of, I think this was open in a garage and had a lot of diesel splattered on it or something like that. But we've cleaned it up for the most part, added some felt, and this is a nice little kit now. Well, here's a long video. I'm gonna ask Thais to just hack and slash this video because it was 2 hours of footage. But for anybody that likes messing with tools, hope you enjoy. Look what I got in the mail from eBay. I managed to talk somebody down to $10 free shipping for this because it turns out they lived really, really nearby. This is what perusing eBay can give for a steal. This is lower than modern yard sale prices. This is like old yard sale prices. You guys ready? This is a lot of fun for just $10. I like how this feels. See, I got a taste for these because I tend to go for tools that were made in the 80s or 90s because I like how older tools from the 50s and 60s, by now the insulation's wearing out and they had nice polished aluminum frames, but I've had a lot of tools, like Craftsman tools from the 60s, that now, when I first got them, they only had maybe half of a volt across them, but now on the casing, they get like 13 volts on them, and you get shocked whenever you use them. But by the 1970s, you have better insulation. The insulation's still good, but some of the plastic wasn't of good quality. The 1980s and 1990s, well, then you really start getting into a space where, once again, the quality can last through the years. You know, at the time, of course, you could always say that people would always complain that the quality went down, but we're in a point now where stuff from before the 1980s sometimes has a chance that the material's just degraded. The parts from the 80s and 90s, I see less of them actually degrading. You know, so I got to use my friend's Makita. He has a whole set of these that he's been buying since the 80s, and they still work for him. And I really like the feel of it because I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big fan of some of the newer power tools. I have Milwaukee. I have a lot of Milwaukee tools, and I just don't really feel like they're that good. And I feel like what I want to do is I want to take this, and I also want to take the right angle drill. Hey, if any of you guys have one of the right angle ones from this era, was it the DA3000D or the DC3000D, whatever that one is, I would love one of those because I want to make a 3D printable version of these that you can just put sodium-ion batteries in. You know, we live in a world now where we have sodium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion, sodium-ion, lithium iron phosphate, nickel cadmium if you wish. But I feel like these would be a good basis for a public domain inspired by the 90s or the 80s power tools. And I really like how this feels. You know, I had switched my opinion, or my eyesight had gone towards the right angle drill because that could be easy to throw into my tool bag. But now that this showed up, I'm going to be happy about this too. I like it. I like the feel. Oh, I'm so excited. Now, let's see what's going on with the battery. Oh, 6.43 volts. Oh. Okay. I can't recall if that's a working voltage or if that's a non-usable voltage, but... And it is an actual Makita battery. Feels a little lethargic, but I like it. I like how it feels. It feels so solid. See, I feel like the modern lithium batteries, a lot of these have a little, I mean, I kind of don't like the air vents because these ones have less air vents. I just worry that metal will get in there whenever I'm grinding and cutting. And I have another drill that I don't really use that much. It's the Milwaukee impact driver. The commutator just sparks so much. It really kind of worries me. Sometimes it doesn't even work. So, and it's only a few months old. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't complain, but yeah. And wait, that's a level? That's a level. Oh, that's a level. I had no idea these had level. Wow, I've never even heard of that. That's amazing. Okay, so it's obviously very weak. We can see if we can get a little more power into this. I took the charger apart and it might not be so easy for me to modify it. I was going to use it as just a connector, but I guess if I have it apart this far, I can just jam my leads in like that. And that's at least a way to hold stuff around it. Well, that works. Okay, so I realized that if I take this little piece of plastic out, then it doesn't think that the battery's in, so the button isn't pressed and it's not connected to the charging circuit. So I'm able to use this to run the discharger. I'm going to go down to 1 volt. I'm going radical, and then I'm going to have it charge. I'm going to really charge it. Let's see, it's been a half hour, and now it's down to 4 volts, so that's 1 volt per cell. Only needs to get down to 2 volts, and that'll be half a volt per cell. We're done 463 milliamp hours. And now what I'm thinking is, I'll go from that, I'll charge it a bit on this, but then we'll take it to the workshop, and I'm gonna hook it directly to the 10 amp connection of the solar panels. And that should probably get it going. Oh, we're down to 2.86 volts. Working our way down. If you don't have one of these, you can do the same with a light bulb or something that's resistive like that. At this point, I could probably, well, yeah, it's burning off a little bit of heat. Only if, it's only a little bit warm, but I can feel it. You could probably get away with just hooking a longish cable to both sides. Now I got it down low enough, I can just jam a pair of tweezers on there and get it down lower. This is a little bit warm, but not too bad. I'm only going to do this for maybe 5 minutes, and then I'm going to check the voltage. 1.2 volts. That's perfect. I reassembled this while I was settling. And let's see if this turns on at all. Oh, okay. Oh, I can hear it. Okay, it didn't stay on. It's probably taking too much current at the moment, so I may have to monitor it and keep pressing this. Although it's going longer now. I'll give it 5 minutes and then I'll check that. So this is a 35 watt charger. 1.5 amps. That's not bad actually. That's pretty good. Okay, so this has actually been charging for about a half hour. I took it off. It was at 8 volts. Really good. And I put it in here. It had a nice speed to it. Put it in for another like 15 minutes. At about the half hour mark, it was still cold. This was warm, but this was cold. Took it out. It was 8.4 volts. Now, over the past 5 minutes, it's actually gotten warm. And I've already taken it out just to test. I feel like now is the point where it's no longer adding a whole lot to the chemistry. It's creating heat. So you see now it settles. I mean, it didn't settle. It starts at like 8.7 volts or so. So that sounds really good. And it's a little bit warm. I'm going to let it cool down. Now, I understand that's not indicative of how it's going to be. It's best to then let this sit for a little bit. And then we can see how it is in a half hour. And what the voltage settles down to will be very good. 8.51 is promising. If it goes down to only 7.9 volts or so, that is really good. So apparently, my friend who sold this to me, he had charged it. So this was already after charge and it had been settling for a little bit, for a few days. So this is really promising. I wonder, does that mean 2007? Maybe it's not an original one. It might be a later pack, but he said it was the original one. At least original for when he got it. Okay, so I just had to open it up to see if there's any date codes. Check the oil. Boy, does it smell wonderful. And I also wanted to see if maybe this was supposed to be not just on-off, but to have a little bit of control to it, because it's hard to say. I feel like it's probably just on-off, but we can modify it, I presume. I want to make an open source version of this that I can 3D print, because it's really quite simple. They sell these motors for about $8. I love the level idea. And you could 3D print or find another variant of a lot of these. I was just walking to the workshop and wouldn't you know, it does have speed control. Well, sometimes if I hit it right, like that. So obviously that switch is having issues. We need to take it apart again. And when we do the restoration, we need to fix that switch because it does have some control. Well, that changes everything. Well, it was at 7.3 volts before. Yeah. I'm currently filming a Solar Sunday video, so how about we just hook up the 46 watts or 3.5 amp connection and see what happens. At 8.75, I'll remove the connection. It's not getting hotter, so I feel like that means that it's absorbing the energy. It's not necessarily resisting. It's not necessarily being resistive and wasting it as heat, so it's still changing the chemical process. Now I'll put this together. I will say this is probably a pretty extreme challenge, a bit unfair on that to be doing these. The last time I made one of these, it got battery acid on it and got destroyed. But this one won't, because it'll be for lithium. So I'm doing a discharge test. I've decided to finally solder a connection to there so we can get a good connection. I actually cut the end off of this so I can get a better power connection. So the first discharge test after charging, we have 594, and I'm going down to 6 volts. So we have 594 milliamp hours, which is, I believe, about a third of what it should have. So now I'm going to put this piece of plastic back in, and I'm going to disconnect this so that it can charge. And we'll charge it with this, and then we'll do another discharge test. This will also allow us to test the voltage. Now I have this connected through here, and the entire system is live now. I'm going to see if maybe I can just unplug this whenever it's done and charge through it without this taking much power, but it shouldn't. And we see 8.39 volts. I wonder how high it'll go. A funny aspect is, in order to have enough clearance to push the circuit board up while allowing these cables, I just put this upside down, so it's upside down on the base, which is kind of funny. It's been about 20 minutes and it's still on the charger. At the 8.99 volt section, it took like a minute to go from 1/100th to the next. Now it's going up quite fast. So it seems like we're going from the point of having spending most of the energy changing the chemical reaction to now we're to the point where most of the chemical reaction has happened and is trailing off into, instead of wasting that energy, as heat. And that's why the voltage is going up, because, well, the chemical reaction usually keeps that down. Now it's the resistance that's coming into play. This might go up to 10 volts. It's kind of interesting. So whenever it's going up very slowly, it doesn't heat up at all. But once it starts going up really fast, it starts warming up. Now, it's not too warm though, but it's just a little bit warm. And I feel like that's probably what's going on inside that cell. It's been 2 hours now. Time to start the discharge. Let's see if it'll work with this. Oh, it seems like it did. Very nice. So the 5th discharge gave 906 milliamp hours. It's getting better. Now we're going to go to 1 volt. Interesting. It was going down super fast. I guess that's the memory effect. Oh wow, now it's shooting back up. Yeah, I guess that's the memory effect. So it settled at 1.916, and then now it's coming back down. And it actually went up and down and up and down, and now it's going down further. So that's interesting. That must be something where maybe it has layers, so you have almost like a strata of different charge cycles, how they've oxidized and deoxidized, or whatever the reaction is. I didn't even really hear the sound. It had finished a little while ago, and it's gone back up to 1.2 volts. That's perfect. I let it charge last night, and I set it to go not too long ago, and I just woke up right in time. Oh, right, of course, now it's going back up. Nickel cadmium is so weird. We're doing really well. 939 so far. Way better than 906. We have a first time over 1 amp hour. 1053 milliamp hours. That is really good. And after sitting for 4 hours, that's really, really good. Had to use the drill a few times, and it worked great. It drives screws really well now. The only issue is whenever it's fully charged, it no longer has any control. It's either on or off. When the battery's dead, it has control. So I opened up the switch. I took off this piece. Turns out this is a heat sink, and the force I was feeling was pulling this up. I hope that doesn't break it. But looking in here, there's these wiper pads, and they're pretty dirty. So I'm going to clean off everything with some isopropyl alcohol and put it back together. The little plunger thing came out, so I can clean inside of there as well. And here's a look at the chip and the circuit. There's this little gasket that the trigger punctures through. Well, this looks like it had foam on it, and that foam's gone away, so I'm wiping that off. Lastly, there was some black goop on these. Looks like they're gold plated or plated with something. Little sliders. Now that I pressed it back on, I'm just going to wipe off any finger gunk that I got onto it. And now that will go into here. Well, seems like it's still dead. It can only go to max speed. Oh well. So I let the power drill sit in my mind for a few hours, and even though it doesn't have any control, I think it's time to do the other thing. Since I've already been taking it apart a few times, let's take it apart and clean it. Maybe fixing the trigger can be for another episode. Maybe I'll do a Big Clive style analysis and figure out how it works. And I must say, this grease smells like such good grease. You want to smell?
Let's see.
It smells like good grease.
Ooh, that smells good.
Yeah, it smells like good 1980s grease. Before I soak these, I'm going to take out the grease. Hopefully we can get some of this grime off. This case design has room for so much grease. I really like it. Not very much has gone bad, actually. It's gone a little bit more solid, but I've seen a lot of tools that were made with planned obsolescence, and the grease, way less grease in them. So this makes me really happy to see that. I feel like I shouldn't have to worry so much about the label coming off. A lot of junk on there. Well, I'll just put it in. I have some dish liquid, and I have some fast orange in there, just because that's what I have. And I'm gonna let it soak for a little bit, then I'll scrub it. If I want to clean this more, I should probably put hydrogen peroxide on it, to be honest. So there's an awful lot of bubbles on it. That's a good sign. It's been a few weeks. I've tried experiments of 3D scanning this and didn't quite get a good scan. And I think it's about time I put this back together. So I have my grease, which is just the Lucas oil, Lucas oil products, red and tacky. I guess I'll go with that. And time to put it back together, because I need to drill a hole. Maybe I put a little too much grease in there, but it's a shame that whenever it's fully charged, this doesn't work. I always feel like this spot down here, this cavity underneath this, is a space where baby cockroaches could hide. I'm going to drill 2 holes using this old drill. Those will cover the holes, but then that'll allow, we can spray stuff underneath here in this cavity where it might even be open to the rafters down there, who knows. But I think that'd be a pretty smart idea. I'm gonna see if maybe this needs a charge, because it's been 3 weeks. I think it's been 3 weeks since I last was doing, I don't know, 2 weeks since I last did an experiment with this. Yeah, it's getting a little too high this time. It's kind of wide. Although this is quite a stress test on a maybe a 1990s battery. So my friend who first let me use Makita tools gave me his original angle drill. What happens? Let's see, am I gonna, this isn't overvolting it. Surely they knew you were gonna do this though, surely. They couldn't have made this and not thought you would just...
Of course you were going to do it. It's an extended mag, right?
Woohoo! Oh my God. That is the forbidden magic of the 9.6 volt cell. We'll vacuum this up, put this back, and then whenever our friendly exterminator friend comes along, we'll tell him just squirt in there, and the rest of the apartment, we're just gonna keep on with our path of caulking everything up. I think for the rest of the video, I'm gonna let that battery cool down, and I'm just gonna experiment to see how much current it can give. It's interesting that it was overheating, but it makes sense. This is more in line for a plug-in drill back in the day. Nowadays, you know, we're spoiled with Milwaukee M12s and whatever Makita has. We think that we can use this just with a small battery, but now you probably need at least the bigger battery back then, or a wall drill. For about 2 months now, I've been trying to get this to work. I've experimented with removing the battery from the case, removing the thermal resistor, trying it without, trying it with, trying with jumping it, and I think that it might just be this charger just doesn't like this anymore, because it charges fine when I bypass the onboard charger, but this thing just only goes for a few seconds and the thermistor, or the thermal relay, whatever that's called, is working fine. Everything tests out, except I don't know how to test the charger, so I guess I'll just have to call it there and accept that maybe the battery is perfectly fine. It's the charger that's bad. It charges the 10 volt or 9.6 volt batteries fine, like for my angle drill, my new angle drill, but it just doesn't like these ones. I've seen people use Dremels and knives to open these up. I mean, you can use a knife, but it just pops off and then you can just push out from there. So you don't need to destroy the pack. If you're going to be replacing the cells, you can just take them apart, as long as they haven't expanded too much. But you just take this out on the bottom. And if you really want to make your day easier, you can break some of these clips off, but you don't need to cut it. I should probably do a full discharge test and then get these rebalanced. But it's been 2 months since I used it, so you know, I kind of expect this to die in that amount of time and need charging. Well, after running it all the way down, I put it in and now it's seeming to be okay with it. Is this gonna make a fool out of me? Or is this gonna make a fool out of me? I don't know, but the limited smarts in this thing is a bit tedious to work with. That is for certain. Yeah, seems like it's gonna make a fool out of me instead of making a fool out of me. Huh. It's been like 20 minutes and it's still charging. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, guys, it's been a year now since I got this, and it has become the replacement for the house drill. And well, guys, I've had this for an entire year now, and it has become the apartment, the house drill, and it's replaced this one, so much so that I'm actually going to be selling this one to a friend. And I figure with that, I didn't have a really good ending for this video, but letting it go for another couple months and having it for an entire year, that's pretty good. So now let's clean up the case and let's clean up the charger. I'm not a huge fan of having it in the case, but maybe we will. I'm debating using this case for something else, like making an organizer in there to hold O-rings or something, but we can see. Let's start with this. So let's give this a good scrubbing, especially with this degreaser. I don't think it should affect that. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe this would have a different organization structure than at my workshop. See, at my workshop, I tend to not like having stuff in their containers because they take up too much space and I always need to get to them. But at the apartment, we only use it once every month, once every a couple weeks. So it actually works out that I could put it back in the case for storage. I do have a workbench here, but I shouldn't have it just sitting on the workbench all the time. It can actually be stored. And the radiators are warm. They should be heating up again though, because I hear the furnace in the basement running. And that will dry that off. We have a bit of a surface finish. Looks like the tops of these are all kind of pitted. Most likely that's from things like carb cleaner and stuff spraying onto it. Look at that, isn't that interesting? Yeah, that's actually stuck into the plastic. With a single wet wipe, I was able to clean the cable, the circuit board, the transformer, and all the little extra bits. Now, as for the case, there was something on it. But it looked like it was plastic that was kind of melted onto it. There's a little bit of rust, but oh well. Mostly I'm going to go over and get rid of all this dust and all the pieces and grommets and whatsits. All right, that's it for the outside. I don't like how these always get stuck like that, because these boxes flex. This foam is a little bit far gone, but I think for now I can just get away with, well, yeah, it's not quite disintegrating entirely. But we can just wipe it down with another wet wipe and it should be good. The inside actually required 2 passes because it was, had a lot of junk in there. So I imagine it actually spent most of its time sitting open or half open because there was a lot of stuff sitting in here, and had to keep getting a new wipe because it was just smearing it around. So I did some experimentation with this. The plastic has a pitting on the surface. I believe this is ABS. I think this has splatters of diesel, gasoline, carb cleaner, whatever. I tried polishing it. I tried using alcohol. I used acetone. It smears it, but it kind of makes it a little bit worse. So that's just one of those things where it's gonna be the way it is. Now, we can actually put this thing back together. You see the base doesn't have any of that pitting. And so I really think that it is just something has gotten onto this. It's a tool. It's par for the course. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I might come back to it later, but I think for the most part, this should be pretty good. Now what I'm thinking is we might want to do a little bit extra, and so this goes in like that, this goes in like that. Should I add felt? Oh, I feel pretty smart. It's the kind of thing Mr. Bean would probably do. I can't remember how it was in there a year ago, to be honest. Oh well. Seems like it would fit over there, but maybe that's for other stuff. Well, that is our apartment drill now. And I will be selling this one to my friend for like 35 bucks. Plus, I don't like those kinds. And I think that should be pretty good. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. See ya.